as he usually is.
Brown drives.
It's not the first time we've seen a superstar in green and white sacrifice the body.
Garnett knocked away.
What is up? Welcome back to another episode of First to the Floor. We've got a special podcast planned for you today. It's the first episode of our Eastern Conference Rivals series, and we're joined by a very special guest, our resident Cavs expert, Tony Pesta. Please correct me if I'm saying that incorrectly. Has a great YouTube. I got it. There we go. He's got a great YouTube channel at Tony_Pesta. Does some great work for Fear the Sword, which is SB Nation's Cleveland Cavaliers blog. Tony, how you going, mate?
Doing good, man. Thank you for having me on. I appreciate any opportunity to push some Cavs propaganda here. So
I love it. I respect it. I feel the same. And of course, Ben, how are you, my friend?
I'm good. I'm here to deflect all of the Cavs propaganda and parlay it into some pro Celtics talk. So I'm excited for this one, Jake. Thanks for teeing this one up.
Yeah, no, of course. I mean, look, it's off season. We're looking for stuff to talk about, and I think this is a fun way to kind of get through the off season and a fun way to get the brain thinking in different ways. And the Cavs were kicking it off. We had some fun games last season, which we'll dive into. But to kick things off, we're going to get Tony's kind of perspective on the Celtics off season and the Celtics over the last couple of years. But it's kind of been a busy off season, a big off season, an emotional off season for the Celtics. What was your thoughts, reactions to the Porzingis Marcus Smart transaction?
Hopefully I'm not going to get in trouble already to start off, because just from an outsider perspective, I didn't love it. And that's primarily because I think I'm lower on Porzingis than some people are. The health is obviously the biggest concern. He's had a history of injury troubles throughout his career. Last year he was healthy, so that's a good sign. Potentially he's on the right track there. And he did have a bounce back year in many ways last season. The only concern there is it's possible he was on the Wizards, so it could be a little bit of empty stats on a bad team. But nonetheless, I still think he's a very helpful player. I just, again, from an outsider perspective, and you guys might agree, Marcus Smart just seemed in many ways like the heart and soul of the Celtics. And so to see him go and be replaced with someone like Porzingis, who, again, I just personally am not too high on, that's the main reason why I wasn't a big fan of it. But just to kind of preface everything, I still think the Celtics are absolutely a contender in the East. I still think Kristaps could be massively helpful to them. They get another 7-footer who can space the floor, defend the rim. So it very well could be a great trade for them. It's just one from an outside perspective. I was like, oof, I'd be a little nervous letting go of Marcus Smart, because I just feel like he was so integral to everything they did.
Yeah, it's been a difficult pill for Celtics fans to swallow, and I think we spent the bulk of the offseason thus far working on, like, psychologically coming around to the fact that Marcus Smart won't be, defending the big guards on the Cavs, like Darius Garland and Donovan Mitchell there. So you mentioned for a second there your perspective on the Celtics. Can you unpack that for us a little bit, so your perspective, and maybe share what the Cavs fans' general perspective might be on the Celtics over the past couple of seasons and their standing in the East going forward, and just generally how they're perceived by other fan bases?
Definitely, yeah. I think for me, and I think most Cavs fans would agree with this, right now and last season, I think really it's Boston and Milwaukee are the two teams in the East. I know the Heat just went to the finals. They're a little bit of a wild card.
Hate slander already. You're fitting right in, Tony.
Yeah, we love it.
They're like in their own basket. It's hard to really predict what they're going to do. But I still, like, heading into last season and heading into this season as well, Boston and Milwaukee are the two teams to beat, in my opinion. Those are the two teams where, from a Cavs perspective, it's like that's where we want to be. We want to make that leap and get into the same bubble as those two teams. I think Philly is another team that's kind of on the outside looking in, trying to get in there with Boston and Milwaukee. But, I mean, Boston knocking on the door of a championship 2 years ago, very well could have made it to the finals last year if a few things went their way. And with Jason Tatum still 25, Jaylen Brown, I believe, is 26. Like, you guys are going to be there for a long time. And hopefully the Cavs will be there for a long time soon if they can make that leap, because like I said, Boston and Milwaukee are still the two teams at the top of the East for me.
Yeah, I did try to scrape your Twitter a little bit, Tony, see if I could find any spicy takes. But you're pretty clean. You love something from Tatum on May 12th. I'm not exactly sure what it is. If you're watching on YouTube, I've got a tweet up here from Tony. Love that from Tatum. Do you remember what that was about at all?
It might have been. I feel like that was a Cavs Celtics game, so I don't remember what, but.
I think that may have been during the Sixers series in the playoffs.
Oh,
so
okay.
I'm wondering if that was like a Game 7 move or something. Yeah.
It was Game 6.
It might have been.
Googled it.
Oh no!
Game 6.
Now I remember. Was Game 6 the game where he struggled for most of the game and then went off? That's what it was. I remember seeing everyone on Twitter just dogpiling on Tatum, and then he bounced back and had that huge stretch down this in the fourth quarter of that game. And so I personally love that. I'm someone like. Even though the Cavs, I ride and die for them, like I just love the NBA so much. And so even if it is a rival like the Celtics and Jason Tatum, like I just love seeing great basketball. So to see someone, perform that poorly and then deliver such a quick wake up call to everyone on Twitter, I love that personally.
Again, definitely speaking our language, and I think you gave me and Ben, I think, a little bit of PTSD when talking about the Marcus Smart Porzingis trade, because me and Ben were actually live when the trade happened, and you can see like the emotion of losing someone like Marcus Smart, the heart and soul. And as you said, like the Celtics have been in the conference finals. Are they a Jason Tatum twisted ankle on the first play of the game from going to the finals this year? They were obviously very close last year. Sending out someone like Marcus Smart that's been so integral is definitely scary. The way that we've kind of talked ourselves into it is that we've raised our ceiling, because I think you're obviously watching the playoffs. The biggest issue for the Celtics has been the offense, really grinding to a halt in key moments against the Heat 2 years in a row. Really, they survived it last year and got to the finals, but in the Warriors series, up 2-1, 5 minutes to go, up like 6 points. Again, their offense grinds to a halt, and you bring in someone like Porzingis that can kind of punish switches, and hopefully bring that offensive juice that they've kind of been missing in like the highest leverage moments. But at the same time, I do think there's a case to be made that they could have lowered their floor. And obviously, we've gone through our own emotional roller coaster with the Porzingis injury stuff over the past like 3 or 4 days. Like Celtics Twitter's figuring out how to use Google translating Latvian, news breakers and stuff like that. We seem to be mostly out of the woods. Sounds like mostly misinformation about the injury, but like all of our worst fears came straight to the forefront. But yeah, Ben, I mean, I think you're probably on the same page with me there.
Oh yeah, all of my fears and anxieties are thoroughly documented on this podcast when it comes to worrying about all injuries, but particularly Kristaps Porzingis, who's just an added part of the recipe now for collective Celtic fan anxiety. But that's part of every fan base at this point. Yeah.
So I think we'll dive into the Cavs stuff. I mean, Tony, obviously a healthy respect for the Boston Celtics, which we love to see. But the Celtics and the Cavs had some epic games in the regular season. 3 of the 4 went to overtime. 3-1 to the Cavs. All wins in overtime. I'm gonna play. Have I not uploaded the clip? We're gonna talk while I upload this clip here. But what are your memories from these Celtics Cavs games from the regular season?
Very good memories, of course. We managed to sneak a couple past you guys, especially the Grant Williams game. I'm gonna make both of them. I thought we were so cooked when he stepped up to the line, so I won't get too heavy on you guys for that one.
You and us both, Tony. Oh man, and we had to ship Grant Williams out after that,
Yeah, unfortunately, I wish you could have gave him to us. We could have used him, but can't win them all. But yeah, I mean, obviously you had, I think it was the first game against Boston. LeVert and Mitchell both scored 41, which that was just a crazy game.
Quickly on LeVert, that guy. He's a low-key Celtics killer, and you've I'm guessing ridden the roller coaster of Karis LeVert, where one day he looks like Donovan Mitchell clone, and then the next day I guess he looks like Karis LeVert. Like that's a roller coaster for you to ride, right?
Yeah, the Karis LeVert experience is a very fun one. It's like, as you said, there's some games where he's just not missing and he's doing everything right. And then there's other games where you just want him off the floor immediately because, I mean, the mid-range pull-up jumper from him was like everyone's biggest nightmare this year. I don't know what he finished the year shooting, but it feels like he shot like 15% on those jumpers. But when he was rolling, he was very helpful. And I'm personally a LeVert defender. I acknowledge that he has had some horrible games, but I like LeVert. I think he has been a overall positive for the Cavs. But yeah, that 41-point game, probably the highlight of the season for him.
It's so funny. Because to us, when you say 15% from the mid range, I'm like, it's so hard for to wrap my brain around that. Like, he had a 50-point game when he was with the Nets against the Celtics, and Marcus Smart fouled him shooting a 3-pointer, and he made it, and then the Nets won. So the clip's uploaded now. I'm going to put you on the stand a little bit here, but we were robbed of kind of a Pantheon game from last season. We'll have a look here.
3-point lead, plenty of time for Boston. Tatum to the basket, gets it off the window. Williams will inbound. Here's Smart. Tatum on the cut, takes it all the way and slams it. He wanted a foul. He ties the game at 107. Now Mitchell, guarded by Brown, 4 seconds left. Mitchell spinning with 2. Step back 3, blocked by Tatum, and we go to overtime. Jason Tatum on both ends of the floor.
And that's where the story ended. The game ended in a draw, the first draw in NBA history. 2 questions. 1, was that a foul? Was that an and one on the Jason Tatum dunk? And I don't remember anything from overtime. Honestly, I've clearly blacked that out. So tell me what happened.
So first off, I will say yes, it probably was a foul, but I will give Jarrett Allen credit. He went up and challenged it.
Yeah.
He could have tried to take a charge. So just for the fact that he went up and challenged that, let him play. I think overtime, free basketball, why not? I do remember that overtime. I believe later on, to kind of seal the deal there was a Jarrett Allen block, and then Garland threw an alley-oop to Mitchell. That's the one memory that I have of it. So another fantastic memory for the Cavs early on in the season before everything kind of just went downhill in the playoffs.
Yeah. Well, speaking of which, I mean, Ben, I'll throw to you here. Do you have any memories from that game, or we can jump forward here?
Yeah, we might have to in post just put a trigger warning in before that part of the conversation there. So obviously great regular season for the Cavs. How do you reconcile that great of a regular season with what happened in the playoffs? Obviously, you come up against the Knicks. The series finishes in favor of the Knicks 4-1. Mitchell Robinson kind of dominated, I want to say. Jarrett Allen and Evan Mobley on the glass. And Mitchell and Garland, the 2 all-star guards there, both struggled a little bit. How do you reconcile that, in comparison to that regular season?
Yeah, the way I've been describing it is that the regular season was a dream and the playoffs were a nightmare for the Cavs. It felt like in the regular season, they really expelled a lot of their demons post LeBron era, where for the first time since I've been alive, the Cavs were a good team and LeBron wasn't on it. So it felt good just to see them break through and have those great moments. They won 51 games. The Mitchell addition, I think, was a home run. Obviously, it hasn't completely panned out yet, but all NBA caliber player, really raised their ceiling in a way that I don't think could have happened without that move. Mobley takes a step forward as a legit defensive player of the year candidate. Darius Garland in many ways improved, even though the stats are very similar to last year. I think his efficiency went up, and just the fact that he averaged the same amount of points with the addition of Mitchell just shows that he has grown in that area too. And then you get to the playoffs and just kind of everything went wrong. Everything that could have possibly went wrong for them. One thing that I do want to mention, just because I think talking to Celtics fans, I think this is from an outside perspective, this is something interesting because I know how the Cavs fans feel about it. I think the loss of Kevin Love hurt the Cavs more than people really realize. And there are some Cavs fans who have very bitter feelings towards Love for the way it all ended. We won't go too deep into the details of the buyout. But for me personally, when you look at what happened in the Knicks series, two big issues. They got killed on the glass, and they didn't have any three-point shooting. And if you want to throw a third issue in there, they look very inexperienced. And then you look at someone like Kevin Love, and it's like, well, he's a really good rebounder. He was one of their best three-point shooters, and he was the only one who was championship experience, and it was like a stabilizing veteran presence the whole time. So for me, I felt like losing Kevin Love. Would it have taken them to a whole new level? No, I still don't even know if they for sure win that series with Love, but losing Kevin for me was really one of the biggest downfalls this season. I'm interested in how you guys felt about that from an outsider perspective.
Oh, well, from our perspective, it impacted us directly because he went to the Miami Heat and was like very critical in them getting to the finals. So like just from that perspective alone, it was like, Cleveland, what are you doing to give him away for nothing? I think Bill Simmons as well. He lost his mind, and everyone was kind of like, "Come on, man, it's just Kevin Love." But he ended up being right. And for Cleveland, I don't know. Kevin Love was kind of like the slightly more impactful version of like Blake Griffin in a way. And like
I was going to say that. Yeah.
Well, there you go. Well, Ben, I'll throw it to the resident Blake Griffin fan here.
Yeah, I mean, I'll just echo everything that you said. Basically, Jake, that the Heat, so from the Celtics fans' perspective, the Heat have this very difficult to comprehend way of reappropriating players' skill sets where they didn't necessarily shine on their prior team. That's what they did with Kevin Love. I will say, whenever he was on the court, in terms of who the Celtics would attack, in terms of a defensive exploit, it was always going at Kevin Love. And so that was kind of an opportunity for the Celtics to score whenever he was on the floor. But, he hit shots for them and obviously provided some veteran leadership, which it seems like the Cavs, like you said, Tony, completely did without in their playoff series. Do you think the presence of Kevin Love for the Cavs there, would that have been enough to at least make it more of a competitive series against the Knicks there?
Yeah, I don't want to go too far as to say like they would have won that series hands down or anything. I mean, that's how I felt entering the series, to be honest. I thought we were going to win in 5. It didn't work out the way I thought. But I do think just like, so with the Jared Allen situation especially, everyone got on him, and rightfully so. He deserves plenty of blame for the way he was bullied on the glass. But one aspect of that I think people often overlook is that the Cavs didn't have a backup big to turn to. They had Robin Lopez, who didn't really play at all in that series. And if you saw Robin Lopez play in the regular season, you know why he wasn't playing in the playoffs.
Well, we like to hear that because the Bucks just signed Robin Lopez. So Tony's just on fire today. Here we go.
Robin Lopez looked very cooked. Great guy, super great locker room presence, it seems like. But there was a reason why, even though Jared Allen was getting bullied on the glass, Robin Lopez was still on the bench because he was just unplayable. But back to that point, like, I think even if you had Kevin Love play 10, 15 minutes a night, just someone to give Allen a breather, get someone else on the glass, bring just something new to the floor, especially on the offensive end where no one on that team could hit threes. But more importantly, like the reason Kevin Love wasn't playing for the Cavs prior to the buyout is because his three-point shots disappeared. He injured his thumb, and he was shooting, I think, like 25% or something.
Right.
But when you look at the playoffs, even against the Celtics, like Kevin Love didn't necessarily start shooting better, but teams were still defending him. They still close out to him. And for the Cavs, it was like we had Isaac Okoro, Karis LeVert, whoever's out there. If you're not Darius Garland or Donovan Mitchell, the Knicks didn't care. They just ignored you on the three-point line. And if you could have even had Kevin Love come in for 12 minutes and stretch the floor a little bit, that kind of gets the offense turning a little bit, and it could have made a difference. But there were so many things that went wrong in the Knicks series. I do want to make it clear that I don't think Kevin Love would have completely fixed everything. There was a lot of things that needed to be addressed.
Hopefully, from the Celtics fans' perspective, there's some tape and some footage there that we can study and make the regular season competition between the C's and the Cavs a little bit more competitive in favor of the Celtics in this upcoming season. So obviously, the season it comes to a disappointing end for all fan bases who don't go on to win the championship, and we just talked about how that ended for the Cavs. I want to ask, though, is this iteration of the Cavs, is it in some way... I want to be careful and delicate how I approach this question. Is it in some way more fun than the LeBron era, in that the expectations are lower and therefore your successes are more celebrated?
Yeah, I definitely get what you're saying there. I think last year for me, well, I guess this season too, the last 2 seasons were fun because there wasn't as many expectations. Now it's not so much fun because we are getting back into like make or break territory, even though they're still very young and they have plenty of time. The pressure is mounting up. But like that 2021-22 season when they first kind of broke out, that was some of the most fun basketball I've been able to watch from the Cavs because they're all young. There's really no expectations. No one expected them to even make it to the play-in tournament. So the fact that they did that, and Darius Garland was an all-star, Jared Allen was an all-star, it's fun in a completely different way than the LeBron era, where especially like the second stint in Cleveland with LeBron, he didn't care about the regular season. So there were a lot of very painful moments, whereas this team very much does care about the regular season. So, like, I mean, Donovan Mitchell scoring 71 points in a game. Like, that's something that hasn't happened ever for the Cavs. So that was so much fun to watch. Just Donovan Mitchell's entire season in Cleveland, his first year, was so much fun. And again, just in a completely different way, it was enjoyable. And one of the more enjoyable things about it is that you could really see Cleveland like care about basketball again. We're very much a football town. So the fact that the Cavs are good again, now everyone's getting excited about them, and it's just nice to be relevant, I guess.
Yeah. When Ben said that, then I started imagining what it would be like if LeBron James had played for my team, like when he had come in like as a young player. I'm like, it's probably more fun in some ways, but like those like early LeBron years must have just been like, I don't know. That's just, you can't even describe like what it's like to have someone like, it's like all the hype and then absolutely exceeding that level of hype to be the level of play that LeBron James was. Like must have been kind of like a religious experience for Cleveland, especially for that first like 5 years.
Yeah. And I mean, like, it was just nice. One thing that we like don't have with this team that we had with LeBron, where like any game you enter, you're just like, well, even if everything goes wrong, we have LeBron, so we could still find a way to pull this one out. Yeah. Now, when things aren't going as well, it's like, we might be done for this game already, unless Donovan Mitchell just goes hero mode, which he did a lot during the regular season, so that was great. But LeBron's clearly just a different level of taking over.
Don't think that's a hot take to say that LeBron James slightly better player than Donovan Mitchell. And unfortunately, Celtics fans are all too familiar with the idea that it's never over with LeBron James in a game or in a series, unfortunately. So you kind of touched on it with the Kevin Love stuff. Like I personally like I mean, it's not rocket science. The biggest issue for the Cavs last season was like that fifth spot. It was like, okay, we've got Garland, Mitchell, Mobley, Allen, like locked in. Who's going to play that fifth spot? Is it going to be LeVert, Dean Wade? I like, like who is it going to be? Do you try and go big with Love throughout the season? Like obviously there was a Coro. I've always been a Chetty Osman guy, but like is he? We're asking a little bit too much of Chetty Osman to be like your fifth guy on a really good playoff team. You bring in Strus and you bring in Niang, and you draft Amoni Bates. I don't think I've been missing any other big moves from the Cavs this offseason. Please remind us and the fans.
No, you got it.
Yeah. But do you feel like some of those issues that you ran into in the playoffs could be solved with Devil Magic? Because Max Strus definitely we're going to see if the Devil Magic carries from Miami over to Cleveland.
Yeah, I'm hoping it does. I'm really hoping it does. But yeah, I mean, that's the golden question for the Cavs all year, and really heading into the future is like who's going to play that final spot there, who's going to play the wing. Max Strus entering the offseason was one of my top free agency hopes, so I'm glad that we got him. We did lose Jetty, unfortunately, which everyone in Cleveland was sad about, but I'm okay with it because I think Strus hopefully will be their starting forward. I know he's a bit undersized to play that position, but he just brings exactly what they need, which not only is it shooting, but it's motion shooting. He's a guy who can run around, screens, dribble handoffs. You get a lot more action with a guy like that compared to like Karis LeVert did a fantastic job of adapting into a kind of 3-and-D role to the best of his ability. And he had a career best year shooting the ball, but he's still not like a traditional motion shooter. You're not going to see him run around screens or really be much of a 3-point threat. Whereas Max Strus, teams care about him when he's moving off ball. Teams pay attention to him, and he does have some sort of gravitational pull. And that's really what you want next to that core four because of Mobley and Allen being two non-shooting big men. If you add a small forward or just someone in that last spot that can space the floor, it makes the long-term viability of Allen and Mobley much more realistic for me. So I'm a big fan of the Strus signing.
Yeah, it certainly ruffles the feather of Celtics fans and puts the fear in us a little bit. Obviously, being part of the Heat team that knocked us out just in these playoffs past, he was part of the Celtics roster that had to cut him as well to make room for some other signings. So we had him in our grasp, and unfortunately had to let him go. And he's been shitting on us ever since, essentially. So you got a good one there and a Celtics killer there. Looking at a more prominent part of the roster, what are the vibes on Donovan Mitchell long term? Are the rumors of him leaving just that sort of classic mainstream media spin, trying to get him to a big market, or is there some sort of fire to that smoke?
Yeah, it's hard to tell. I think there's definitely a bit of the mainstream media pool trying to make something out of nothing, but I also think, he is from New York, so it would not surprise me at all if he says, hey, I could make millions of dollars to go play basketball in front of my home city. Like, I wouldn't blame him if he did it. With that said, a lot of Cavs fans are nervous. I'll be honest with you. Cavs Twitter, every time Donovan Mitchell posts a picture of him wearing a Mets jersey, Cavs Twitter blows up. So there's a lot of nervous people, and I think part of that is PTSD from LeBron. He gives and he takes with everything he gave to Cleveland. But for me, I think I'm pushing it off till next summer. Really, I think this season, there's no doubt in my mind that Mitchell is committed to this upcoming season. And so as long as the Cavs show something, it's really on Kobe Altman and the Cavs to show that this is a place where Mitchell can win long term, because ideally that's what is the most important thing to someone like Mitchell, is winning basketball. So if they come out and they improve and they actually do make some sort of playoff run, whether that be getting to the second round, getting to the conference finals, or making a championship run, you just need to give him some reason to believe that he can win in this destination. And if you do that, I feel confident. If they get knocked in the first round again, and we enter the offseason, I'm going to be way more nervous than I am right now. So that's basically where I'm at. But even and I also want to say this, the good thing about the Cavs, Darius Garland's 23, Mobley's 22. Even if you do lose Mitchell, we still have a very strong core to build on. So it won't be, LeBron's situation where we're left with nothing, at least. So the rebuild will be a little quicker if we lose Mitchell.
Yeah, and I do think a lot of that series was a little inexperienced. It's just there's no way for Mobley and Garland to prepare for the playoffs if never been there before. Even Allen, right? That was actually one of my main concerns of the Cavs going into the playoffs was outside of Mitchell, no one had been there before. And I was someone who was kind of a little anti when the Cavs made that trade, just because I was the Cavs just had that awesome season. You're pushing all these chips in, and Mobley's the key is Mobley, right? I think for the Cavs to go to this next level, this championship contending level, consistently, it's how does Mobley get to that next level? Obviously he wins Rookie of the Year. Obviously he was third in Defensive Player of the Year last year. I think early in his rookie season, I thought the expectations became unfair for him. It was okay, this is the next Kevin Garnett. And it's defensively, I think maybe that's fair, but offensively, I thought it was quite unfair. Kevin Garnett came into the league at 18 years old and was like a bucket. And I thought that that's not Mobley's game, especially yet. 21.6 from 3 last season. And I think that when you got those two shooting bigs out there, non-shooting bigs, it's going to be tough, which is why Strus will help. But where are Cavs fans on Mobley? What are the expectations for next season, long term? Do we still have Kevin Garnett as our North Star? Where are we with Mobley?
Yeah, right now it's hard not to be high on Mobley, I think, just because at the very least he's a perennial Defensive Player of the Year type player. So that's something you can always hang your hat on. The offense needs a lot of work. I do think in many ways being drafted to Cleveland was kind of a blessing and a curse, in the sense that he's not getting as many reps as Anthony Davis or even Kevin Garnett got during their rookie seasons, because Mobley's playing with multiple other players who need the ball. Darius Garland, and now with the addition of Donovan Mitchell especially, he's not getting as many reps. And so I do wonder if that's going to cause his offensive game to take a little bit longer to show itself. But yeah, Kevin Garnett's a huge comparison. I think it's a good blueprint for him personally, especially with the mid-range scoring, because right now the 3-point shot's just not there. Maybe it will be one day, but if he can become a Kevin Garnett type shooter in the mid-range, like, I mean, you're looking at an all-time great player at that point. So I think that's the big focus for me, is just expanding his range a little bit. He's already great around the rim. He doesn't have much, he doesn't create many shots for himself, but with Garland next to him, he's going to get a lot of opportunities to score, and he has finished around the rim at a very efficient rate. So that's very promising. If he can step out to the mid-range, that's another added tool to his bag. And the other thing for me is I want to see him develop as a playmaker. I want to see them use him more as a hub, kind of in a Sabonis type role. I do think he has great court vision, but he's still very young. It's very raw. I'd like to see them dump the ball to him a lot more and let him make reads kind of in that short pick and roll. He did it during the regular season, and then their lack of spacing kind of just erase all of that in the playoffs. So moving forward, that's the big thing. So I want to see him score in the mid-range, and I want to see him get more on-ball reps, just kind of up that usage, because the defense is already there. Like, I feel confident saying he's already one of the best defenders in the NBA, and that should remain true moving forward.
Yeah. I might go a little off track here. So, like, you know, you talk a little bit about like Mobley's development, and is this the right, you know, track for him? Like, being on this team where he's not going to develop his offensive game, we may or may not lose Donovan Mitchell. Would you still make that Donovan Mitchell trade? Like, you can go back now, last offseason. Do you still make that trade?
Yeah, I would. I still would, for sure. I think it's possible that it slowed his development, but I'd have to imagine that he's still making progress. It's just he's not getting those same amount of reps. Yeah, I think, you know, just playing winning basketball has to be worth something for his development, even if it's not, you know, going out there and shooting 20 shots a game. I think it's allowed him to focus on other aspects and really build those habits. And so if the rest of his offensive game does get developed, I think it'll be better for him in the long run. But yeah, I mean, if he was drafted to this Cavs team and they never made the Mitchell trade, he probably averages 20 points per game last season, around there. Because I do think there is a very strong offensive game for Mobley that has kind of been overshadowed a bit. I mean, he had the 38-point game last year against Milwaukee, where he really showed off, some of his touch, not shooting the ball, but these kind of like deep post hooks that he got a lot of in that game. And I think, again, if his usage was higher, we're probably talking about Mobley a little more than the general mainstream news has been covering him. Because right now he is very raw offensively. But again, in the different circumstances, he would be putting up bigger numbers, I think.
Yeah, and I think, like, even if the structure of the roster was different, like with Allen there, he's running like half the pick and rolls he would be if it was just like a traditional, like he had a more traditional stretch 4 next to Mobley and he was playing the 5. Like, I do think that, yeah, because he's got touch. He's a really good passer. I love that about his game. Like, anytime you have a big man that's like a really good passer, that's always really valuable, because not a lot of big men have that ability. So I definitely think there's an offensive game in there. I like that blueprint as opposed to comp. I think that's a good way of framing the future of Mobley. Like, the Cavs for me they're a really fun watch. Like, Darius Garland is like, he's kind of like a dinosaur in the sense that Celtics fans have been screaming for a traditional point guard for forever, basically, for the whole Jays era. And there was like that 1 week where there was Jaylen Brown for Darius Garland rumor, which no one really believed except for Celtics fans that were like, maybe the Cavs would actually do it. Like, there was no chance in hell that the Cavs were ever trading Darius Garland, who has he even started his rookie extension contract yet? Maybe 1 year in.
I'm not sure. It might be coming up.
Yeah, versus like Jaylen Brown would be a free agent.
Yeah.
It's like we're gonna trade Darius Garland, who's got 4 years left, for Jaylen Brown. But we had a moment there, Ben, where we were like, you know who would be pretty good?
We've had a lot of dark moments as far as considering, what the options are for Jaylen Brown. I'm curious though, Tony. Like, you've got a lot on the horizon as far as like prospects and things to be excited about on the Cavs front there. So much young talent. Jake just mentioned Darius Garland. We talked about Evan Mobley. Is Mobley like the forefront of what Cavs fans are excited about of the future, or is it Darius Garland, or is there something else, player or team-wise, that's dominating the headlines there?
Yeah, that's been a very interesting discussion that we've had a little bit recently on Cavs Twitter, just kind of because I think, Darius Garland's still only 23, which feels crazy considering the leap that he's made, and he's still so young. So there has been some discussion. Like, I know for me personally, I'm really interested to see, does Darius Garland have another leap in him? Right now, he's kind of like a fringe all-star player. Is it possible he could take the leap to an all-NBA caliber player? I'm not ruling it out just strictly off the fact that he's so young and he's already so talented. But then when you look at Mobley, I feel like the path is just more obvious. Like if he adds an offensive game, he's an all NBA player. It's basically that simple for Mobley. Whereas with Garland, for him, it's basically just increasing the volume, which not everyone can do. And so that's like a bigger ask, I think. But yeah, most people would probably, and I would personally put the Cavs title hopes on Mobley's development. But I think Darius Garland is probably the most underrated player in the NBA. I might sound like a Cavs homer for saying that, but I think he's very underrated. And if he makes a leap next year, I think it could surprise a lot of people.
Yeah, I love Darius Garland. I think so. He's not underrated for me. Like I really really like him. I think you need to be able to have something in the NBA that's actually quite rare. Like to find a guy that's and he's an elite table setter. Like he's so good at finding guys, and I think that's why adding Strus and Niang, like those are legit shooters, and Garland's so good at finding guys. So I think that the Cavs are going to be really good again. So this young core, and that's, as you said, like Mitchell leaves, you can survive it. We went through the Kyrie trade, right? Like, when I was looking through your Twitter, you were like, well, the Cavs won that trade. It's like, yeah, the Cavs did win that trade. Yeah, because we...
Ultimately.
I think about all the time, if I had a time machine, and I could go back and tell Danny Ainge one thing, what would it be, of the last 5 years? And it's like, it's probably the Kyrie trade. It's because... Then we keep the 8th overall pick. He doesn't throw that alley-oop to Gordon Hayward that shatters his ankle and ruins his career. And we also just don't deal with the whole Kyrie drama. We're going on a tangent here, but we got time. Ben, do you have a question?
Well, I got to ask. We talked about what things Cavs fans are excited about.
Yes, go.
I have to ask, slightly lower down the totem pole, Emoni Bates led the Cavs to a Summer League championship just a month or two ago. Obviously, he had a bit of a tumultuous up and down, post-high school career after being quite hyped up as a younger fella there. Are Cavs fans starting to develop their own Emoni Bates propaganda? I can imagine as a Celtics fan, if we nabbed this guy in the draft, becoming unnaturally excited about what his potential future would be with the team. Are Cavs fans finding themselves going there?
Oh yeah, immediately. The moment even before he was drafted, they were already doing that. And I got myself in a little bit of trouble because I wasn't as high on Emoni Bates as some Cavs fans. I mean, there are some people who were thrilled with this pick, and I'm just kind of still the 49th pick. But I definitely see the potential, and his summer league performance was as encouraging as it could be. If you had any concerns about him, it's came out. It's the Summer League championship, but it's winning basketball nonetheless. He made some subtle changes to his game, which could be major in the long run, because the concern with him is mainly his shot selection. The way that I describe him is that right now he's more of a shot maker than a shot creator, because he really doesn't create much separation when he shoots, but he's just really good at making difficult shots. And when you join a team like the Cavs, that's a good skill to have, sure, but I just don't know how much of a leash he's going to be given on a team that's trying to win basketball games. Hey, Emoni, go shoot pull-up three-pointers and, be the streakiest shooter in the draft. But if he can put together some consistent habits of being an off-ball threat, being a little bit more of a passer, that was another concern, is that he basically had zero playmaking resume during his college time. It's if he can develop some other aspects of his game, then he could be a helpful player. He's still, I believe, 19 years old. So this is kind of a long game situation for the Cavs, who will likely spend a lot of time in the G League polishing that game. But some Cavs fans are beyond excited. I'm not at that point, but I definitely think that's a nice little prospect to stash away. There is one other Summer League prospect I want to mention. I don't know.
Oh, yeah. Here we go.
I don't know how familiar you guys were with the Cavs roster. I love that Summer League team. It was the most fun Summer League I've had. But Craig Porter Jr., I don't know if you guys watched any of him at all, but
no, I didn't catch any Cavs Summer League games. I'm sorry.
Totally understandable. You have to be a real sicko to watch.
Well, I
Not
watched
only
all the
just the
Celtics
summer
summer
league.
league, yeah.
Exactly. You watching your own team is one thing, but watching other teams in the summer league, that's severe being a sicko.
If they don't have a top 10 pick in the summer league, I'm like oof. And as much as I'd seen Amoni Bates' high school mixtape on Instagram over the past several years, it wasn't quite the draw card. But go ahead.
Yeah. No, totally understandable. But Craig Porter Jr. went undrafted. He's a guy who I had no idea who he even was heading into the summer league. I just learned about him after we signed him, and I immediately fell in love with his game. He's a point guard. Slightly undersized, but he's good athleticism, really good rebounder, great court vision, efficient shooter. He's really just like an all-around solid player to where I was like, how did this guy go undrafted? And he played very good in the summer league. There's the possibility that he could be, jack of all trades, master of none. It's possible that he won't be great at any particular thing, but he was so all-around solid in the summer league and in college. He's an older prospect too. I think he's 23 maybe. I might be wrong on that, but he's a bit older, so that's why he did fall so deep. But I was very excited about him. If I can, I'll throw a Boston blueprint for you.
Here we go.
He mentioned in his interviews that he watched a lot of Rondo growing up, and I think you can see a little bit of it in his game. I won't go too far to make the comparison, but you can see it in the way that he rebounds and pushes the tempo, just kind of the way he reads the floor. Very excited about him. I would love to see. He's going to be with the Charge this season. And if he gets an opportunity to get on the floor, I'm going to be going crazy for him. So,
look, anytime you can get Rondo undrafted, I think you should do it. But look, but you never know. Like the Celtics, have Sam Hauser, who was undrafted, who's probably like our backup wing this season, and we've had a bunch of picks in the 40s and stuff that haven't panned out. And you never know which kind of guy's gonna hit, which is exciting. So. I know Ben has to duck out in a second, but we'll hang on to him until he gets out of here.
Well,
but,
can I ask one more question before I go? Because I'm just curious to hear the answer, Tony. Yes. Who is and let me know if this question doesn't make sense, because I'm using like a deep Celtics roster player as a reference here. Who is the Luke Cornett of the Cavs? Who's like the spicy fan favorite that like you really have to be a Cavs fan to understand the joy that it brings the fan base?
Can I guess?
Yeah, go for it.
Is it Dean Wade? I know that's like he plays a lot, so like Luke Cornett doesn't actually play that much, but like it has to be Dean Wade because he's just good. But like the casual fan doesn't actually like think that he's good, right?
Dean Wade probably would have been the answer heading into the year, but I think the fan base is soured on him. I think he kind of lost some of the good fortune there. But now that Lamar Stevens and Jetty are gone, I don't know who it is. It was really both of those two guys, I would say. I guess, this guy plays too much to really give him that honor, but I would say maybe Isaac Okoro now. I don't know. Cavs fans will attach to any player and go crazy for them, so we have a lot. I'll give Dean Wade the credit because I do think if he can oh, you know what? Actually, I just thought of it. It's Sam Merrill. I don't know if you're familiar with Sam Merrill.
Well, kind of, yeah.
Great shooter.
He played for the Charge. He really hasn't gotten into the NBA yet, but he lit it up in the summer league. Might not play this year for the Cavs, but Sam Merrill, I think, is the one who's won all the Cavs' hearts.
I love it. Look, I just think Dean Wade's over-tasked. He should be like one or two slots down in a rotation, and then he'll be back in the good graces.
I'm a Dean Wade fan, so I'm with you. Yeah. I'm hoping he has a bounce back season because last year was a little rough for him.
He was on my list of like, could we trade for Dean Wade and get him in like a TPE kind of thing? Like he's just a guy that can kind of do a little bit of everything. All right,
I'm going to duck out. Appreciate it, guys. And thanks for coming on, Tony. Jake, bringing home strong. No worries. All right, see you guys.
Talk to you later, man. I will. See, this is what happens when Ben leaves me here. He's the I'm not gonna try and get back the cool background because then we're gonna fall. It's gonna be a disaster. But we'll wrap up here. Where like with the last couple here, where do you see the Cavs kind of stacking up in the East? Because like I think Celtics, Bucks kind of at the top, and as you said, the Heat, who knows? Like with this rival series, I can't get the Heat out, and like we have no idea what the roster is going to look like before now and the season starting. I'm like, to me, the Sixers are done. They're like as far as winning a title, they might win some regular season games, but like the Cavs were the 4th seed, last season. Obviously exited the first round, but so what are the kind of the expectations going into next year?
Yeah, I think you really nailed it. As I said at the beginning, Boston and Milwaukee are the 2 teams near the top for me. I think they're kind of in a tier of their own compared to everyone else. I think Philly was knocking on that door last year, and I also agree that I think they're probably on their way out, regardless of what happens with the James Harden situation. I'm not really feeling too confident that they're going to end up winning that situation. Embiid, it's hard to count him out, but at this point, I do kind of have doubts about whether or not he can really lead the team to where they want to go. And they're very limited with what they're going to do with their supporting cast. So I would kind of count them out. Miami, as we said, kind of a wild card.
Dude?
If they get Damian Lillard, that depending on what they end up giving up, they could be right in that tier with Boston and Milwaukee. They could end up being the 8 seed again, for all I know. So.
Even
Miami's,
with Dame, right? Like they could end up kind of dropping just because Dame's old, Jimmy's old, and like all of a sudden, like if one of those guys are out and you've given up so much, they are just the perpetual wild card now. It feels like
they're the team where like no matter what seed they get in, even like entering the playoffs last year, a lot of Cavs fans were hoping to get matched up with Miami because they thought it'd be the easy target. And I was like, I'm good on that. I'll take New York or Brooklyn, one of these other teams, because you just don't know with Jimmy Butler. So I would just avoid that if I could. Other teams in the East, like I know the Knicks just destroyed the Cavs, so it sounds bad if I say that I still think the Cavs are going to be ahead of them next year, but I still think the Cavs are the better team. I still think ideally this Cavs team is going to be, if I predict their ceiling, the 3rd seed, maybe even the 2nd, depending on, like, not to wish any bad luck on the Celtics, but if Kristaps gets injured, the Cavs could very easily get in there. The Bucks are getting old, so regular season standings, maybe they'll drop. But once you get to the playoffs, it's Boston and Milwaukee are the 2 teams that I'm most concerned about. I really think the Cavs their goal should be getting that 3rd place. They should be right below the Celtics and Bucks in the tier list. And we mentioned the regular season games they had against the Celtics. Those were so much fun, and I wish we could have seen that in the playoffs. Not only because it would have meant the Cavs made it a little further, but it would have been a really good test for that team to play a true contender and kind of match up against them. And that's what I want to see next year for the Cavs is they need to make it out of the first round, and they need to run into Milwaukee or Boston and give them just some sort of a challenge. Even if you can't get over that hump on the first attempt, you need to give them a strong 6 or 7 game series and just get those lessons under your belt.
Yeah, honestly, I would not be surprised at all if the Cavs end up in the 2-3 spot, like even the 1 spot. For the Celtics, I think they're going to win a lot of games, but I'm not really too concerned about their seeding. They've proven to be an awesome road team in the playoffs the last couple of seasons. So for me, it is more about that health. Like I would kind of lean to resting guys a fair bit throughout the regular season. But the thing is, Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum don't really miss that many games, and so when those 2 guys are playing like 70 plus games, like you're gonna be in the mix for a top 3 seed. Well, let's see. Let's say the Celtics are the 2 seed or the Cavs are the 2 seed, and the Celtics are the 3 seed. And this year the Cavs. Because I think as things stand right now, I would pick the Cavs to beat the Knicks in a playoff series at the end of next season. Like, I actually bet on the Knicks for that playoff series, but because I had this feeling about the inexperience. But I think I really like Strus. He can play undersized. I think that he can play in the playoffs and gives them that shooting. I saw you retweeted a post about how he had the 4th percentile of open looks while playing for Miami, and they have Darius Garland and Donovan Mitchell. There's going to be open looks available. I think he's going to be a really good shooter for them. I think if they have Strus maybe in that series, they maybe get it done. So going forward, I think the expectation should be win a first round series, because the second round of the playoffs is where things really get crazy. Really get. I think that's really where you get your playoff medal. All right. So what do we think happens in a Cavs Celtics series? You want to make any bold predictions for a playoff series that may not happen before the season even starts?
I won't be too bold, but this is my genuine feeling, because I do think the Celtics would beat the Cavs. I know it's, Cavs fans will be upset. They were upset at me when I said it last year too. I just think, like, my whole perspective is, when you look through the last 20, 30 years of champions, like, every team runs into a wall and loses one of these hard-fought battles against a better, older, more experienced team. Unfortunately, last year, not to throw shade at the Knicks, that didn't really happen for the Cavs. They lost to a team that they should have beat. They were favored to win. Yep. It's refreshing hearing other fan bases say that you expected the Cavs to win, even though you bet on the Knicks. You thought
it was
that
more
the
like
Cavs
good value.
were
Like,
favorites. And so, like, moving forward, I do think the Cavs, I think they're talented enough to beat the Celtics. I wouldn't be, like, completely shocked if they beat the Celtics. I just think experience matters. I think, having been there before matters. And if both teams are completely healthy, I think it would be a great matchup. It could go 6 or 7 very easily. I would probably pick the Celtics to win, but I'm saying that now. When we get to, next season, I'm going to be talking myself into the Cavs making it all the way. So,
well, we've got it. We've got the clip now. So when the matchup comes, we'll be able to bring this one back. I would be shocked if it didn't go 6 or 7 games. Donovan Mitchell's always given the Celtics trouble, and Karis LeVert has the Celtics killer label, so it would not shock me at all if it goes 6 or 7, and I'll be sweating. And this is what the Celtics do. The last 2 seasons in a row, they've played 7 games in both the second round and the conference finals, which is why I'm going to die 5 years earlier than I should have, because the stress of the last 2 playoff runs. But I look forward to it. I was actually hoping we got the Sixers and not the Cavs in the playoffs, because even though it did get tight and did get stressful, I knew the Celtics would eventually prevail against the mentally weak Philadelphia 76ers. But the Cavs and that pull-up shooting that Donovan Mitchell has just really, really terrifies me. But look, that's going to do it. Tony, absolute legend. Appreciate you stopping by. It's been super fun to get the Cavs perspective. I will do a quick production podcasting note. We will be having our next round of Celtics trivia next episode. We're getting the Green with MV guys on. Greg and Will are going to be going head to head, and round 2 of Celtics trivia. And then we're going to be doing playback. We're going to be watching the Isaiah Thomas 53 points against the Wizards from 5+ years ago. So that's going to be fun. Lots of good off-season content coming your way. But Tony, again, thank you. Appreciate it. Love your work. And go follow Tony _Pesta. Get the Cavs perspective. He's got some good stuff coming out across his YouTube and on Twitter. But in the meantime, go Celtics. Oh, this is what happens when Ben's not here. I didn't have the clip. Here we go. Outro. 3, 2, 1. See you, team.